Councillor Emma Marshall, I'm doing Gloucestershire non-constituent member.
Just in time, you can say who you are.
Sandy Shingardi, Director of Strategic Partnerships and Integration, Transport for West Midlands.
Carol Hyatt, I'm councillor for Wolverhampton.
Jennifer Hemingway, councillor in Sandwell, standing in for councillor Steve Melia.
Anyone councillor voting in.
Councillor Sadeknia, Birmingham City Council.
To say who you are, Purvis.
Councillor Purvis Akhtar from Coventry.
Councillor Bonnet regarding to Wolverhampton Council.
Councillor Martin McCarthy, Solihull Metropolitan Borough Council.
Councillor Tim Huxtable, Birmingham City Council.
Councillor O'Ryan, Solihull Council. Councillor Lund from Birmingham, please do pass my best wishes on to Steve.
Councillor David Shanley from Dudley.
Mark Corbyn, Director of Network Resilience at Transport for West Midlands.
Carl Beat, Head of Transport Strategy and Planning at TFWM.
Afternoon, everyone. Adam Harrison, Principal Policy and Strategy Officer at TFWM.
Good afternoon, Lindsay Roberts, Statutory Scrutiny Officer for the Combined Authority. Good afternoon, Mary Lott, Birmingham City Council.
We have members online. Could you just say who you are? Well, we can read who you are, but where you're from, that sort of thing.
Hello, Councillor Anne Tucker, also from Coventry.
Hi, Councillor Amal Hussain from Walsall.
Hi, I'm Kate Taylor, Head of Finance Business Partner and Strategic Planning for the Combined Authority.
Andy Bullock.
Good afternoon, Andy Miller. I'm Strategic Planning Manager at Sandwell, and I'm just here in an observing capacity.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We have some erstwhile colleagues at the back. Jake, I think you should introduce yourself.
Yeah, Jake Thrush, Associate Policy Advisor at Transport for West Midlands.
Thank you very much. Got Richard Worrell, former lead.
Yeah, hello everybody.
Hi there. Albert.
Yeah. Albert Thomas, yes. A public transport user.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Albert comes with the furniture.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we've got Tim at the back as well. Okay, right. First item on the agenda then is the appointment of Vice Chair. Can I seek nominations?
Councillor Mary Lott.
Thank you. Seconded?
I think.
Thank you very much. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. That then creates a vacancy for passengers. And I've got the agreement. We'll deal with that immediately. It's a Labour nomination. Councillor Locke.
I nominate Councillor Carol Hyatt.
Seconded. Councillor Akhtar, agreed. Thank you very much. Item 2, apologies for absence. There are none.
Lorinda Kuna.
Okay. Tim.
Councillor Alan Taylor from Dudley Metropolitan Borough Council and Councillor Gurmeet Singh Sohal from Walsall Metropolitan.
It might be helpful to use the mic. All right. Okay.
Apologies.
Any other apologies?
Apologies, of course, I didn't see Councillor Hugh Charging.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next item, declarations. Are there any? I see none. Moving on. Chair's remarks. I think what I have to say in this very sunny afternoon is that I believe we're hitting the ground running. There's been a lot of interesting meetings with officers to understand what the role of transport delivery overview and scrutiny is and how we take it forward for the year. And I will be making reference to actions later on with the member engagement groups. Nothing else to say at this stage. So looking forward to the year working with you as transport colleagues. Minutes of the 3rd of July, are they agreed? We have an action blog as well. Agreed? Any issues that we need to pick up from the minutes today? I'm letting you, what's your call? Any issues that we need to pick up? Not on the agenda.
Not specifically, Chair, but you'll notice in addition to last meeting is the action log, which members have asked for. So it might be easier to pick up the matters arising from there, otherwise the minutes stand as written.
Okay, so that is agreed then. Moving on to the financial monitoring report. Councillor Akhtar first, and then over to Kate.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to please bring it to committee's notice, and I'd like to ask officers, because normally we used to have 2 reports regarding financial situation, and we have 1 report which is financial monitoring report, and we're still waiting for capital program delivery monitoring report. And I know officers having their internal changes. So can I please ask officers, someone can explain when we will have that report?
Okay, thank you. Kate, who's doing it? Is yourself?
I'll pick
Yeah.
it up.
It will be the transport, yeah.
Sorry.
Thanks. So I think I mentioned this at the last meeting as well, is that with the changes that we've got around the capital programme and things coming together from different funding pots all into CRSTS, and the role of the Transport Delivery Overview and Scrutiny Committee is that we are redesigning our reporting package on capital delivery to bring into your arena projects that are being delivered both by Transport for West Midlands as well as the local authorities using the funding that is flowing through the combined authority. We're in the process of redesigning those and we will be able to give you some detail probably in the November committee is where we'll start to have an initial, it'll be a sort of evolving set of dashboards that will give you the right level of insight. Now, with the CRSTS programme, we normally do quarterly updates through to the investment board as well, and then an annual update on performance of delivery to the combined authority board, and they will also come into this committee as well. So there's no report, it wasn't on the forward plan for today anyway to have a capital monitoring report, but they're in the process of being redesigned, and we will make sure that I think November will have an initial view of that, but we will also fit into these quarterly and annual cycles of reporting.
Okay, thank you for that. Because I have noticed, Chair, as far as the program is concerned, it's not mentioned anywhere. The monitoring report, so please, it's crucial for us. As to financial report, Chair, this is the financial monitoring report, reporting year-to-date income and expenditure up to 31st July 2023. As to revenue budget, the year-to-date revenue position to 31st July 2023 reflects a favourable variance of £2 million to budget. The key variance for this is savings in the concession budget, which continues to be transferred to an earmarked reserve for transport risks. The first financial forecast for the 23-24 financial year has now been completed and shows that revenue budget expect to be balanced at year end. Year-to-date capital expenditure to the end of July is £96.7 million, which is £19 million behind the year-to-date budget. £12.5 million for this variance relates to Transport for West Midlands schemes, and £6.5 million relates to schemes being diverted externally by local authorities. Within Transport West Midlands schemes, the key variances are across metro, rail, and data and digital schemes, while timing of works has moved back to compare to budget assumptions. The Q1 forecast has seen £41.3 million reduction against budget. 23.9 million relates to Transport West Midlands delivered schemes, with the largest variance being due to rephasing of work on Birmingham East Side Metro scheme into later years. Externally delivered schemes forecasts are informed by returns from local authorities, which are projecting £17.4 million reduction in full year spend against budget. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Kate, and I'm sure she will elaborate on these variances. Thank you.
Councillor Akhtar.
No further commentary from me. I will take the report as read on there, but happy to take any questions from members.
Any questions? Councillor Hyatt.
Are there differences between budget and actual?
Sorry, Carol.
No, I didn't. It might help when. Are there differences between budget and actual, what you might expect at this time of year? And is it possible for you to give us some context as to whether we're doing better, worse, or just about the same as usual with respect to spend? And also, if you look at, let's see, it's B. Is where the section B, summary position, Transport for West Midlands capital budget. I wondered what was the overspend on highways and sustainable travel, and is it possible for you to give us some idea about that? Just to unpack it really, so I understand what I'm looking at.
Just on just to clarify, is that around where we talk about budget as around revenue or capitals, or both?
Well, in the summary position, we've got, I need some help in Perez, I think. We've got highways where the actual budget spend at the moment is, well, it's 100,000 more, isn't it?
Under, sorry, over, yeah.
Yeah, and then the other place where we've overspent is sustainable travel, which is £62,000 overspend. It's not necessarily an overspend because we haven't got to the end of the year yet, but I just wondered, you know, the reasons behind that. It's just giving some context and perspective on what we've been told, that's all.
Yeah, so I don't have the detail around the highway schemes. We can certainly get that breakdown unless any of the officers for the transport side specifically there. But you're absolutely right. They are not overspends. They are a variance against the year-to-date position. So when we do the budget, that will be based on various assumptions around, for example, contracts being signed and payments to suppliers. Now, sometimes those happen later, and that's why you see sometimes the big variances, and sometimes those activities we are able to do them earlier, and therefore we incur the financial liability on there. But none of these projects are overspending against their full life budget, or we would have flagged those. So the only projects where we have concerns are those that have been flagged through the capital pressures report to the board already. Through there, but these schemes are, yeah, it is around the timing of the actions that sit underneath in terms of those, but we can certainly look at getting some more detail around the specific details of the highway schemes. There will be very many schemes ultimately within there. There's quite a number of smaller schemes.
The other one was to say, are the differences between the budget and actual what you'd expect at this time of year? You know, are we doing worse or better than usual, would you say?
We are, I mean, overall, we are behind budget, and we are usually on capital, and that's not unusual. If you look across kind of other local authorities, it is not usual, but we tend to be behind rather than necessarily over. So there are no, I guess, no concerns at the moment from that. It is where we expect, because we understand the reasons behind each individual scheme. So It is as we are expected, as informed by our operational teams.
Can I ask about Appendix 2, please?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. I don't know if the microphone was on.
Please can I go to ask a question about Appendix 2?
Yes.
If you go to Appendix 2, you've got the Wolverhampton Metro extension, where only 2 million has been spent of the 6 million budget that's been allocated for the July year end date. You've got a total budget of 8 million to year end, and the project is going to be finished in 2 weeks' time. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to have the metro running in Wolverhampton, and it should, you know, all the trials should have been done. And I wondered what the rest of the money was going to be spent on.
That is because we are currently in contractual discussions. So there is a process, for example, around effectively what you'll know is compensation events. So we are discussing all of those. Until those have been through an approval procedure, we don't release the monies for those. So kind of it's a timing difference effectively. So until they have been through all being signed off, we don't release the cash for those. So there's a catch up period, and you'll see that quite often, for example, in some of the rail schemes and in sprint schemes. We've had those variances before where it is around the discussion of compensation events.
Thank you. Can I also on number 2? What is a priority 1 development? Sorry. Yeah, underneath total other.
I would have to defer to my transport colleagues on that one specifically.
If I may, Councillor, I'll come on that one. Priority 1 development relates to a number of cycling and walking schemes that were set out through the cycling and walking infrastructure plan. So it's the first batch of schemes within the priority 1 development stages.
Thank you, Councillor Hyatt. Councillor Huxtable.
Thank you very much, Chair. In terms of Appendix 3, and this is a general question, Appendix 3 relates to externally delivered capital schemes. So I'm assuming the money flows through the combined authority and we then devolve it to the relevant external body, whether it's a local authority or someone else. How do we, as a scrutiny committee, keep the external deliverers accountable for these capital schemes?
So this is obviously the change from the former committee to this committee where you were scrutinising what Transport for West Midlands was delivering. With the changes that we've got through the funding allocations that are coming through with the combined authority as the accountable body, this new scrutiny committee will be looking across the whole programme in terms of what's being delivered as well. Councillor Purvey earlier asked about the capital reporting. So that's one of the things that we are taking a bit of time to design here, is to make sure that working with the local authority transport officers, and we've got Andy Miller observing today, is making sure that we've got the information flowing through from the local authorities on the local authority promoted schemes, and we can give you the right level of updates about how the programmes are being delivered, any schedule issues, risks, finances, etc., as well as part of that. So this scrutiny committee, as we sort of get into the rhythm and the design of those reports, will allow you to provide the scrutiny on not just TFWM schemes, but local authority schemes as well. And we've extended the invitation to our local authority officers to this group as well. And they will come by exception, I guess, dependent what's on the agenda, or as Andy's done today, to observe or will be available for any questions that may come.
You content?
Well, as a follow-up, if you look at Appendix 3, the first 3, there's no indication as to who the external deliverer for rail external is. So are they local authorities or are they stakeholders that work with the combined authority that are not local authorities? And I come back to my question, if they are non-local authorities, how are we going to keep these stakeholders accountable as the accountable body? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, so majority are local authorities, some are not, yeah, you're right, but they're either being managed by the combined authority or through the local authority as well. What we can do on that, as we get the reporting right, is to make sure that we've got who the scheme promoter is or who the accountable delivery authority is as well, so that you know who it is that you're going to hold to account.
Content. Councillor Arden.
Thank you. I think that's very welcome as well. I've got 2 points I wanted to add on. Across Appendix 2 and 3, there is a range of schemes that are currently forecasting slippage. Are there any which, at the current point, we've got concerns that slippage means that we will no longer be able to afford to do all of the package of works that was originally planned as part of those? So I want to be particularly need to be keeping a close eye on, or are all of them contracted in such a way that we will get all of that work despite the delays causing any inflationary issues? And then the second question was following on from Councillor Hopeful's point around those schemes in Appendix 3. Is the plan that this committee has the power to be able to bring in external stakeholders, whether they be a local authority or someone else delivering schemes, where there is schemes that are particularly going off track, to be able to get more detail behind that and to be able to do that proper scrutiny of those schemes, given the combined authorities the ultimate person in charge of those schemes? Thank you.
Yeah, so in terms of affordability, we have already reported previously to this Combined Authority Board where we do have some of those budget pressures and how those are being managed. And you'll hear in a little bit on one of the next items is the CRSTS rebaseline, which is actually adjusting the programme on some of the projects that will be coming forward over the next 5-year period and into the full 10-year period for CRSTS as well. So I think we're managing those ones. I think we've already given the headlines as to where the schemes are that we need to watch. Inevitably, as delivering large capital programmes, that will always be some changes, and that's the purpose of why I'm trying to get the reports right, so that this committee concentrates on some of the big risks and issues, the finances around capital projects as well. I think when it comes to external bodies, I think I probably have to defer to Dan, but as a scrutiny committee, I think you can call in those people who are responsible for using combined authority resources, delivering things that we've commissioned for that work to be done. And not the people we're in contract with, but the other organisations that we might be working with.
Content? Yep, thank you. Councillor Ward.
I want to ask a question arising from the email sent out last week by Anne to do with the subsidised network. So 40 million is now being committed to out of the bus service improvement plan in order to save 27% of the region's bus routes. So I'm not arguing that's the wrong thing to do. But when you add that onto the 16 million that was already being spent, we must now be paying for over a third of the bus routes, bus services across the West Midlands. So first of all, how does that compare with other areas of the country? Secondly, this BSIP money is funding these services through to the end of 24. I assume that's the calendar year. So there must be a process then for review and a decision to be taken about what happens going forward beyond the end of next year. And then finally, I couldn't quite reconcile the £16 million with the line in the revenue budget, the subsidised network, which is stated as being 14.25.
I'll pick that's what Councillor if I may. So firstly, in terms of the process for the amounts and how that compares with other areas, largely similar. So broadly, there have been examples in other areas, predominantly metropolitan, but not solely metropolitan, where repurposing of funding, although we do know that we are one of the largest to seek repurposing of BSIP funds from government into network protection, due to the vast scale and the fact that currently we have, if you like, we still have around 90%, although that's due to still have some further changes between 88 and 90% of our network running, and that compares to a lot of the other metropolitan areas where they're down to around 80. So we do have a higher level of funding being committed to try and support that. What that has also tried to offset is still seeing that we can achieve some of the transformational elements of BSIP as well. So, and it was felt that by trying to retain the vast majority of the network, that still enables us to have a significant network to achieve some of the transformation elements around. So comparison terms, but it is a significant figure and one of the most significant. But I think it's also a reflection of the fact that we are the largest bus network outside of London as well. In terms of the process of review for December 2024, and you're correct, there is a calendar year aspiration, so that proposal runs until December 31st. 2024. The intention of that was to try and, if you like, ensure that we had a significant window of opportunity to engage both with local authorities, leaders and government around what opportunities still exist beyond December 2024 for future funding of the network. And there have been some conversations going on with the CK board around that. The opportunities and the potential impacts. But the process that you referred to of review is one that's being established both with operators through the BSIP, but also with leaders and local authorities to ensure that under the enhanced partnership, we can come together and know what the potential ramifications are of that. We've also seen since we last met some significant changes at National Express in terms of their leadership. And so there have been some major changes in terms of senior leaders within the organisation. So we just recently met with the new board of board representatives of National Express Group as well, who are the majority operator of services in the region, so that we can commence an understanding of what that process internally looks like for them and start to engage on what services will look like from early 2025 and what needs to be done to support them. Also, around the subsidised bus networks, I should say that process is ongoing with other bus operators as well, but obviously, given that they operate around 85 to 90% of the services, then that's been a key conversation. In terms of the subsidised values, the difference in the two reflects on the fact that some of the values that we've been using have been from other government grants that were committed. We used to talk about CB, SSG and local bus funds, LBF. So these funds have been used to offset in some areas. So that shows a small difference between what the combined authority resources are committed and what come out of those other government funds as well. Hopefully that.
Anybody else? I see none, so Chair. Councillor Ackland.
And please, you can see the question being asked. If I would emphasize that report, the capital program delivery monitoring report, instead of in November, which is, if you see, we met, first meeting was in July, up to November, it'd be 5 months. So I don't think that's acceptable. So please, I understand, you know, you are also going to put in our CRSTS, but we used to have excellent reports, monitoring reports, before when it was a TDC from Sunday. And I think even if you can't include these new fundings, but the previous project and programs, at least we should carry on with those programs and those reports. And I think officers need to do more to bring those reports back. As far as this 40 million pound the BSIP money, that was for a very different purpose altogether, Pete. That was to do with national bus strategy. Once we spent that money, it's gone. So that money was, the whole purpose was to transform the bus services, the bus network. So in other words, the commercial operators, they have raised, in last meeting we discussed, they raised the fares from early in the morning. The pensioners are paying £1.50. They used to pay £1. They increased it to 50%. Now, without even informing or telling, last time, you know, David pointed out, and then the other fare gone from £4 to £4.50. And now this 40 million, as Ian pointed out, 6 million subsidies. We put millions and millions of pounds of infrastructure for bus services, so the private companies can make money and pay their shareholders. So as far as person like me and my colleagues, I think our conscience are troubling us because, as I said before, we are the guardians and representing here the taxpayers and the customers. So it's not acceptable. Something seriously something wrong somewhere.
Thank you, Councillor. So noted in terms of the capital side of things, in terms of the revenue expenditure around this, it's also worth noting that the process that we will undergo, whilst, as we noted to the committee, that we put the ask to government to amend the scheme to ensure that we could continue with bus services in the West Midlands, because we saw the implications of such a massive reduction in services here immediately, being a clearly unacceptable impact for the residents of the region and the network more widely. In terms of the implications of that, because we have only just received government support, if you like, for that change that we previously reported, we will be bringing back to the committee an update in terms of potential implications and a review of what that means. That won't be within the capital programme, but there will be a very specific paper on that to this committee to set that out and to receive adequate discussion time against scrutiny.
Could I suggest a way forward then, that you report to the finance make with an interim update between now and the next meeting, and then Pervez, you'll be in a position to report back to this committee on progress. You okay with that? Okay, I see no others were asked to note the position at the end of July 23, the revenue budget and the capital programme. Will we agree? Thank you. Item 7, CRSTS rebase proposal, is an update to committee the programme of transport improvement over a 5-year funding period. There are some criteria outlined in the report, not to be seen as an opportunity to introduce new initiatives. Projects must align with the objectives. Funding envelope must remain the same, with a 15 to 20% local contribution, and delivery by March 27, I mean value for money. There is a question that comes to my mind highlighted in 2.7 about the programme being heavily back-ended, with forecasting delivery completion in the final year of the programme, which may attract scrutiny from DfT re-deliverability. And again, I would suggest that that's referred to the appropriate MEG for an understanding of what the implications are, having this programme identified more or less to be delivered in the last year. Adam, is there anything else you'd like to answer? Add? Carl.
On this one. Thank you, Chair. So this was, as the Chair said, relates to our CRSTS programme through reporting that we do, as well as all the other now combined authorities across the country that have CRSTS. We've all noted that inflation is one of the biggest risks of the programme. We're all aware of inflation in our day-to-day lives. When we go to the shops and construction, inflation is absolutely no different. So this is across the board, across the country, and has been noted, and a fairly pragmatic move by DfT to say here is a one-off opportunity to rebase your programme to let us know if either projects are going to cost more or if less outputs are going to be delivered. So with all the scheme promoters, so TFWM and the 7 local authorities, we've undertaken that exercise, and a large thanks back to all the local authorities who really entered into the spirit of collaboration in terms of feeding back into this process and working back through what a rebaseline programme might look like. As you would imagine, across the programme, there are some cost pressures that need to be dealt with, and I think there's been a fairly pragmatic approach to looking at those, where projects that are earmarked for development only in this period are in some cases being used to cover cost pressures on much more mature projects that are likely to deliver in this delivery period. So the process has gone relatively well. The movement is actually relatively minor across the programme this size so far, working through with local authority colleagues.
And the programme of governance events is essentially from Move On today, which has been considered by this committee to CA board on the 15th. And then the deadline set by DfT for final submission back to them for consideration is the 29th of September. So there is still a process to go through with the Department of Transport for them to ask any clarification and questions they might have and ratify the approach. And then, as Anna's pointed out and others mentioned, this programme will be, I think, a really important part of what this committee looks at as we report back on it quarterly and annually in much further detail. So happy to take any questions, Chair.
5% of our buses are still non-E6, which is pretty used to sorry. 5% of our.
Could you not use the mic?
5% of our buses are non-EC6 still. They still pump out a lot of black smoke and that kind of thing, typical of such engines before that came in. Do we now have some confirmed cost and timing for eliminating the last of those obsolescent buses engines?
I think my erstwhile colleague Pete Bond will know more about this than I do, but there is some money in this programme specifically for that issue. But people know more about it. I think the issue is declining year by year.
Erstwhile Mr. Bond.
Thank you. And yes, it is. There is some funding to support it. I think it's just worth members knowing, though, that whilst there is a plan in place and a timeline to eradicate the remaining 5%, and those buses that are still operate under, if you like, a permit from us to do so. Worth also bearing in mind, though, the government have just temporarily halted the rollout of some of the what we call the retrofit programme, where we are fitting retrofit older buses to bring them up to the relevant standard, based on the fact that they are unsure as to whether they are achieving the right outcomes or not. This is having an impact on operators, the desire, willingness and support for actually implementing some of those retrofits. So we are working with the government to understand what their concerns are, how quickly they intend to assess them, and whether that will lead to then a further reinitiation of the programmes, or whether they will end that form of programme. Just sharing that with members because that could yet have an impact on the further rollout programme that we have for the remaining 5%, but happy to share with everybody what that current programme looks like.
Thank you. Anybody else? Carol? Sorry, Councillor Hyatt.
If you look at 2.9, it says about how we're going to lower the programme against future granted income. So that means that projects that would have been paid for by the money that we've got now are being rolled back, and we're going to have projects that we expect to be able to pay for from future budgets. Have we got an idea of how much or how big our future budgets will already in effect have been spent? Because they will have been earmarked to complete projects that we would have spent with this lot of money.
Yes, it's in, I think it was reported in June, CA board, overall what our capital pressures are looking like for some of the projects outside CRSDS, but projects that have had to deal with inflationary pressures over the past couple of years. The figure off my top of my head last time was in that GCA board, I think it was £160 million. That is being looked at very closely, as you would imagine, is being mitigated through a number of ways, through different funding pots and allocations that we can bid for, and also through value engineering certain programmes. So yes, that is the reported pressure, and is there, and it's one of the things that we're working closely on to make sure this programme delivers the maximum amount it can in this period.
Through you, Chair. I'm sorry, I don't know how much of the total 160 whatever million pounds is. It seems a lot of money, but I don't know. Can you tell me relatively, is this a little or a lot? You know, what percentage of the whole are we talking about? Or what percentage of potential future revenue, you know, might be lost?
So the future, we don't know what our CRFDS2 allocations will be yet. We're very confident that there will be one. There's lots of conversations ongoing with governments. And at the spring budget statement, they referenced that there will be a CRFDS2 for eligible combined authorities. The budget for that is in excess of what we had for CRSTS 1, which was nationally 5.8 billion. I think CRSTS 2 is somewhere in the region of 8 billion, so it's much greater. What we don't know yet is what our allocation from that would be. I would expect that we would get a significant amount of it, being one of the bigger combined authorities with an ambitious decarbonisation programme. Overall, it's a reasonable amount of money, as you would expect, but in context of the size of the capital programmes that TFWM and the combined authority has, it's probably one proportionate with that level of programme.
I'm sorry, can you say it's proportionate with that level of programme? I still need to know, it says a percentage of it. Could you tell me what that means?
So over programming against CRSDS in the budget, we've got just for that. So that's not our total budget for transport, but just that one element at the moment is around 14%, which is, again, I say, is not unreasonable in terms of programming on a programme of that size. So often you would over program at 20%. So 14 is within the kind of tolerance that you would probably expect.
Okay, I see no other hands, I see nothing online. So I guess we're asked to note the report. There are no recommendations, but I would request that we look at 2.7 and refer to the appropriate MAG about the delivery of the back-ended programme. Okay, agreed? Item 8, deeper devolution deal, scrutiny implications. Looking at the paper, this is a potential for the combined authority to be treated as if it were a government department. I think that needs to be explained, Adam. But there's a lot of goodies in here. Housing deal worth up to 500 million. Fiscal devolution, 6 levelling up sums, devolving retrofit funding, and the devolution of bus service operator grant, and a new partnership with Great British Railways. One thing I'd like to do in introducing this item is refer to the accountability framework, ensuring that mayors and other local leaders are subject to robust and effective scrutiny by local politicians. That's us. So we've got to develop a framework that we're comfortable with to ensure governance and accountability is fit for purpose. To act as a good on to say from the Hina Davison MP, she's still in her role, don't know. Acts as a safeguard against unethical behaviour, inadequate performance and poor value for money, placing a focus on transparency and scrutiny. Local councillors are empowered to provide effective scrutiny through a new scrutiny protocol, which we will receive in the very near future. So I'm going to hand over to Adam, who will expand upon that with
standard.
Standard. I'm going to dig.
I'll do the next one. That's my one. This is Dan's report.
Thank you, Chair. And as you tease up, Adam is presenting the next report, which is specifically about the implementation plan for the transport aspect of the devolution deal. But this report, as you've highlighted, is it takes out a higher level view, because it's not specifically transport, but it's about the deeper devolution deal more generally, and it's to bring members up to speed and to provide that detail of what's been going on over the last couple of months in respect of the devolution deal, and the expectation from the government that is written into the deal that in additional powers and responsibilities to the combined authority, there should also be strengthened scrutiny and oversight, and clearly this committee, along with the CA's other scrutiny committee, have got a key role in providing that increased scrutiny and oversight. So I won't go through the detail of the report, because it's there and I'm sure you've read it, but perhaps just to tease out a couple of the key points. And you mentioned it in the English Devolution Accountability Framework, which was published earlier this year, which sets out the government's thinking when it talks about improved accountability and strengthened scrutiny. what it's thinking in that regard. And one of the key work streams that came out of that accountability framework is something called the Scrutiny Protocol, and this will be of particular interest to ourselves, and particularly this committee. So if we hold thought around increased powers means increased scrutiny and increased accountability, what the government intends to do with the Scrutiny Protocol is to set out what it thinks improve a sort of improved scrutiny and a really good scrutiny function is, with the intention then that those particularly combined authorities, and that would be ourselves at Greater Manchester, when we want to measure our scrutiny performance and activities, that we have something to measure them against. So clearly the intention is that if in measuring them we consider ourselves to be below the standard set by the Scrutiny Protocol, then we look to raise our game, so to speak. So I thought when I was preparing this report that by now the Scrutiny Protocol would be published, because there's been a lot of work going on over the summer, and officers from the combined authority have been involved with working with civil servants in pulling together the Scrutiny Protocol. I have to say it hasn't been published yet, and the latest guidance from civil servants is they're expecting to do that towards the end of September. So this report is teasing that publication somewhat. But what the intention will be is that when the protocol is published, first of all, I will make sure members have a copy of that so you can see exactly what it says. But then officers will do a piece of work with members, and we will absolutely involve you in this, with the intention of them bringing a report back to the next committee, where we actually measure ourselves against the gold standard scrutiny, if you like, and look to see where we're currently doing well, and equally those areas where we need to improve and strengthen our scrutiny. And very much, as I say, the government's assessment of the implementation of the devolution deal will include an assessment of how well our scrutiny function is. So it's something rightly that we focus on, and very much an area for this committee to give particular focus to in ensuring that it is effective. I should also add, it isn't in the report, but the civil servant who's leading on the Scrutiny Protocol is very interested in talking to members, and particularly coming to the West Midlands to talk to you, to hear your perspective on scrutiny. So as we will bring a report to your next meeting, this is the plan for her to come along to the meeting and talk to you and give you an opportunity to engage with her. She's very keen to that it isn't just an academic piece of work that gets published and then forgotten about, and wants to hear what combined authority scrutiny members think of the protocol and what they think are the challenges doing their role. So we want to bring her along, get her a chance to come and see what we're doing, and for you to engage with her. As I said, we have been involved in a working group that is pulling together the Scrutiny Protocol, and I said the same to the Open and Scrutiny Committee this morning, that having seen early drafts of the protocol, I think the likelihood is there is lots in there that we are already doing, and lots that we're already exceeding. So I don't think it's going to be problematic for us, because genuinely as a scrutiny function for a combined authority, I think we measure up well compared to anyone. But that's not to say that there won't be opportunity to further strengthen what we do, and so that will be a good opportunity to do it. So it's a holding report in a sense at this moment, because the Scrutiny Protocol, as I say, will be published in a couple of weeks. Bring it back to the next meeting and to get your perspective and how you think you can implement that, which will help us implement the DIPO deal. One last thing, Chair, you've just seen in section 5 of the report, so it's not a direct matter for this committee or our scrutiny, but you will, I'm sure, be aware of talk about the Mayor being required to undertake a Q&A session with the region's MPs, and that is something else that is being legislated for. I thought it appropriate to just draw attention to it, so you are aware of it. It won't touch on the work of this committee, but is another strand, if you like, of the accountability and scrutiny framework that the combined authority will be subject to. The terms of reference for those sessions are currently being worked on. As you imagine, trying to get 30 odd MPs all together at a single time and to have a public Q&A session with the mayor takes a little bit of arrangement. So again, we're working with the department in Westminster in drawing up how those will work to make sure the meetings are effective and actually are productive. I expect the first one to happen later on this year, and then it's the governor's intention that these are quarterly sessions. So I think it'll be very much, you'll be aware of it, although if you're not directly involved in it. But I thought it was worthwhile just highlighting that as another area of scrutiny that will go on in that wider sense. So at the moment, the report is there for information. As I say, Adam will talk at the next item, particularly around the transport aspect of it, but scrutiny in the wider sense is covered off in this report, and it's to ask you to note that progress and look forward to the report on the scrutiny protocol to your next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Essex. Councillor Locke.
Can I just ask, it's interesting, and thank you, Dan. You know, with getting MPs and the mayor together with busy time frames and schedules, possibly, you know, a meeting via Teams, because I would imagine face to face, I know it would be difficult then, but it would be one suggestion, and getting together, it would be good to possibly just have a look at it as well afterwards as a committee.
Yeah, I should say, so I think the intention is a face-to-face meeting, but absolutely the sort of logistical issues are really ones that need to be worked out. I should have mentioned that these will be public sessions, so the intention will be they will be live streamed. So if people don't attend in person, you will be able to observe them. So they won't be sort of private Q&A sessions, but that they will be so if they'll be held in person, that the footage will be live streamed as well. So members of the public and councillors themselves can watch proceedings.
Okay. Councillor Hyatt.
Dan, thank you very much for what you shared with us. Could you give us a heads up with regards to scrutiny? How will we have to demonstrate it? How will it be measured?
So in a number of ways, and the combined authority scrutiny function, if we think of it in its totality, has for a number of years and will continue to do so, produce an annual report, so a sort of end of year position statement how scrutiny has operated. So that's what we've done in the past and will continue to do. What will we do new? The devolution deal will require scrutiny. So when I talk about scrutiny, I mean your committee and the other overview scrutiny committee. So it will require those two committees collectively to report to the main WMCA board on a quarterly basis. So you will have a opportunity requirement to report on your activity to the main board. So that's the one that's chaired by the mayor and the leaders of the constituent councils sit on. Again, so that will be a public report that will be debated and considered at quarterly at the main WMCA board. So that will demonstrate it. And then there's further work that is beginning to be developed around public awareness of these meetings and the activity. So I think when I say we'll match up well against the scrutiny protocol, but it's one area I think we do need to do more, and that will be teased out in that protocol is around public awareness of these meetings and public visibility and public engagement and all of that. And we'll need to think about how we do that, because the government have made clear that they want to see more of that. So I think in those areas, it's about demonstrating, communicating, and giving a higher public profile to what you're doing.
Thank you, Dan. How will it be measured then? How will its success be measured?
I mean, it's not binary. There won't be a yes or no answer to that. And actually, as I'm thinking about it, how will we measure success? And I think members of the committee have a significant role to play in that if you feel constructive, helpful, penetrating scrutiny is going on, then you will advocate that within the annual report, within quarterly reports. If you think that this is a bit of a talking shop that's doing nothing, or you're not being listened to, or your suggestions aren't feeding through to the decision making equally, then you know you need to speak in those terms. And so you know from one quarter to the next. You know, we're looking at trends rather than effectively the last 3 months, but certainly in that reporting and the visibility in the annual report, these are your documents. You as a scrutiny member will own them, and if what we're doing is not effective, then that needs to be communicated through that. Now, the government will undertake a review of the devolution deal and will want to know the implementation. You said that the next report is around the implementation of the transport powers, but the implementation of strengthened scrutiny will be one element of that, and so will be considered collectively. But ultimately, you know, scrutiny is a member-driven function, and you should speak if you think we're not doing it very well.
Thank you very much.
I see nobody else then. Pick up your last comments, Dan, in terms of member driven. I'm conscious that there's been an officer working party at a national level, at a local level, or regional level that's been discussing the way forward. Member involvement has been less so. So what I would like, this is an item. You say there are interim reports, draft reports, available that could be members could contribute to. So again, could this be referred to the appropriate MEG discussion in the meantime? Because what I wouldn't want is for us to have more or less a final report or recommendations coming to committee on the 30th of October. So if we could have that MEG meeting, I think that'd be quite useful.
Yeah, just to be clear, scrutiny protocol is a government document, so they will sign that up. But absolutely, when I think the member involvement, it will be about the implementation of the protocol. So, but if it said, for example, you should do increased publicity, then it would be for members here to decide and to input into how they might do that. So it will be, it won't be so prescriptive that you have no discretion on how you do it, but it's to give you a broad framework within which to operate, and then it will be for ourselves, Greater Manchester in their situation, and others to work out how we're going to do it. And that work, absolutely, members need to be involved in, because it's, you know, you're at the heart of that, and that's what we do as soon as it's published.
I understand that proviso, but nevertheless, it would be useful if MEG had an input before the 30th. So if we can take that as a way forward. We're asked to note the announcement and welcome the publication and agree a further report. We agreed?
Right.
Thank you. Next item, Mr. Harrison.
Got there eventually, Chair. Thanks for that. So this is politically aligned to the report that Dan's just presented. So this is the kind of transport implementation part of the devolution deal. So the report sets out the kind of key transport commitments within the deal and how TfWM is working closely with national government, local authorities and our key partners to implement and deliver those commitments, and the commitments are set out in 2.8 of the report. The deal commitments kind of also say 2.1 to 2.8 build on our strengths within transport innovation and how we hope to align that to the West Midlands Local Transport Plan, which is currently in development, and achieve those outcomes around levelling up accessibility across the region, decarbonising and electrifying our transport system and reducing traffic contaminants in our cities. 2.9 to 2.1 of the report sets out how we've established a live implementation plan and how we built quite a close working relationship with the Department for Transport and their representatives, which previous experience of deals has not been the case when we went through devolution 1 and devolution 2. So there's a close working relationship there to ensure that we hold DFT to account on their elements of delivering the deal. The implementation plan is set out in Appendix A of the report. This is in effect a high-level summary of what the deal aims to achieve and what we hope to deliver. Also kind of highlights some key risks as well. So there are areas where we are expecting publications of national guidance, where it's still delayed at the minute, and obviously there's some uncertainties, especially around rail and rail reform. So that's something that the committee needs to be aware of, and that's something we're working really closely with officials on at civil service levels. And obviously in terms of the report, this is the first time we've brought to this committee, so we kind of welcome any feedback or any queries or questions around elements of the deal and what that actually mean in practice. And obviously this is quite cross-cutting, so we welcome kind of briefing any of the kind of member engagement groups and the chairs or a joint session of that to go into a bit further detail. So I'll leave it there. Happy to pick up any questions.
For me, thank you for that. For me, the most important thing in this is the passengers. Passengers are the most important thing in life because they go on our railways, they go on our trams, Sprint buses, everything, and that they are. And I think the users, whether they be those that are disenfranchised, because we have lost services as well due to funding, but you know, I just wanted to get that over really. Okay.
That's the most critical part of what we're here, you know, in terms of our job, is making sure that we do that. So I think within the deal, it gives us new tools and new ways of working in terms of those collaborations between national government, with our local authorities, but also the private sector, in terms of, you know, the changes within the transport system, more generally think about technology and information and some of the things that we've delivered as TFWM and kind of innovative space. So that gives us kind of further parameters to kind of work in that space to make sure that what we do benefits passengers and the residents of the West Midlands.
Yeah.
Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Chair. I'm particularly interested in the area where you're going to be demonstrating new innovative technologies to try and look at behaviour changing and be working closely with central government and how this can be rolled out further afield. I'd like a bit of reassurance really around it not just being, I suppose, city centric, because a solution that works for a big city won't necessarily work for a smaller town. I mean, I'm from Redditch, so what would work in Birmingham Central would definitely not work in Redditch. So it's about making sure you're not just you're not too focused on one place, and you'll be looking at different solutions for different types of areas, going down to the more rural.
Yeah, that's quite an important part. So if you think about some of the work that we've been doing already as TFWM, kind of co-mingling trial between Bring and Ride and West Midlands On Demand, that's in that part of the West Midlands, so in fact Coventry, Warwickshire, so that where it's probably in that rural kind of urban kind of fringe crossover, which is Redditch, probably quite similar, it's just outside the West Midlands. So looking at, there's not a one size fits all for kind of solutions. So actually the deal gives us the ability to trial things in a different way and look at things in a different way. So that's some of the work that our transport innovation team are doing for the influencing transport labs. You know, people's behaviours are different. You know, in rural areas they have different kind of, you know, in terms of experiences or barriers. So that's probably something that we could probably bring in a bit more detail to a further committee as this kind of evolves. So it's definitely something that the team are looking at in terms of the work with national government and working with academics and the kind of private sector in that space.
Councillor Huxtable.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, Appendix A, infrastructure and planning on page 40. This might be more Carl than it is you. But I believe that we're looking at various corridors within the West Midlands with a view as to which mode of transport is most effective for that corridor. It would be metro, spring, it would be very light rail, etc., etc. And I'm very keen to understand, as part of this devolution deal, as to when we, as a combined authority, will decide what are the most appropriate forms of transport along these transport corridors, and have the ability as a scrutiny committee to actually test that, from our understanding as to are they the most appropriate. Thank you, Chair.
Carl, you picking that up?
Yes, absolutely. So as part of the work we're doing on the LTP, the 6 big moves includes a big move on public transport, moving people around. That gives you some of those priority corridors. Now that's set, essentially the corridors are agreed in kind of what the priority, the sort of first batch of priority corridors are. We're now working through the process of doing exactly, as Councillor Huxley was pointing out, doing that assessment of which mode is the most appropriate and affordable mode for that corridor. Some are a little bit ahead of others. East Birmingham also long corridor has got some funding that started. The others have not started yet, but are about to start. So there will be a programme of work. We'll be able to report to the appropriate member back to this committee on that process. Essentially, that is something that will be undertaken that fills in the colours in the LTP essentially in terms of the different.
Just to additionally add to that as well, we've got to think broader than transport. So transport is a solution that is based around the demand that comes from where we've got regeneration, growth, and business development as well, so new employment sites and so on. So in addition to the schemes that we have in the current CRSTS programme, we'll also be looking at what would be the future demand based on a more place-based approach, where we've got other initiatives across the wider combined authority and with our local authorities as well, where we might want to add in additionally other transport investments as part of that. So as well as the stuff we've already got in the CRSTS programme, some of which align to things like we're seeing around investment zones and levelling up zones, which are also part of the wider devolution deal as well. It's allowing us to also build a much stronger pipeline where we're meeting the needs of the purpose for people moving around in the first place.
Yeah, and my question is, when as a committee can we see that work?
Yes, so on the ones that are currently in the CRSTS programme, it's in the timetable as to when some of those things will be delivered. So in the next 12 months, we'll have some interim reports on 1 or 2 of those corridors, and some of them are a little bit further afield as part of that. But that should become clear as we're monitoring the capital programme. That's what's paying for some of those studies. So you'll be able to see when those things will be expected. And in one of the relevant megs, as Carl said, we can go into a bit of a deeper dive on some of those things as well.
Perhaps this is something that all the megs will pick up, because it is important that we keep on top of this. Councillor Akhtar.
Chair, thank you. Chair, bus network is broken, and yet we are talking about this deal, and it says, there will be levelling up zones. This is a terrible indictment of our government and national leadership, that after 13 years in power, we start thinking about levelling up our regions and our deprived areas. But obviously, officers can't make comment on this. Local authorities are struggling to balance their budgets. We have cost of living crisis. And now, in this paper, I don't see anywhere that in transport, we are struggling to balance our budget. Last year, there was a deficit of our revenue budget, 13 million pound deficit. I think, I'm sure officers will correct me if I'm wrong, I think we are talking about something like 26 million pounds. deficit next year of 16 million pounds. Now, there's nothing in this paper, nothing at all. Is that, please correct me, regarding this? There is a promise, another 5 years of CRSTS money promised in the future. But what I'd like to know from officers, that might not be relevant. We have the powers of transport levy. The mayor has powers for precept and also increasing the business rates. But how much money is contributed by West Midland in income tax to the government, and how much do we get back?
I'm not sure I can pick up some of the technical parts of that, which Kate may be able to help. But in terms of long term, I'll point to a couple of bits within the deal that are a bit wider than transport. So if you think about business rate retention and some of that falling and growth, that does help with some of those issues around the kind of interim financial pressures. And if we think it kind of links to the point about when funding from BSIF may run out at the end of 2024, there is a conversation with government that started around a single settlement. So that will allow the kind of joining of capital and revenue money together, which potentially will give us the flexibility to spend in a different way, where traditionally we've done it, you spend it across this line, you deliver this. Gives us a bit more flexibility in that space, but granted, there are obviously clear financial pressures in the CA. Kate, I don't know if you want to come in on that one. So
before that, 40 million BSEP is gone. It's only 44 left. It's 88 million altogether.
Kate,
yeah, I mean, obviously around business rates, we get, so our ability to access business rates is driven by being an MCA. So the, you know, kind of the business rates is supposed to support some of our other statutory duties around economy effectively, and some of the other work of the CA as well. So we get that because of being a CA and having those responsibilities rather than being an LTA. So I think that's important to just keep in mind that we have other functions as well that we have to support within the CA.
Chair, what can I ask Kate? What is the deficit for next year, as far as revenue budget is concerned, predicted or reported by Commander Authority Board?
So the the board report that went to the last board gave a projected deficit of £26 million for 24-25, and that rises to kind of 60 million by the end of the MTFP period. So we are currently looking at solutions for that, but as Adam said, we have the single settlement coming in from 25-26, so we are currently looking at the interplay with single settlement versus transport levy versus precept versus the business rates, how all of that plays into the future financial sustainability of the combined authority for that. But obviously, as you will be aware, we have a statutory duty, as do all LAs, to provide a balanced budget that is signed off by the end of February 24 for the year 24-25.
Did you want to come back? You okay? I mean, but you're right to persist on this matter because it is something of concern to have such figures in terms of a deficit. So we really need to keep on top of this, and yourself, Provost, will be doing that.
Chair, what I'm worried is that we have cost of living crisis. Our people are struggling. Our residents who elected us, given us a great honor and privilege to sit here, and yet some of us are just being spectators. And it's not acceptable. Our national leadership, our regional leadership need to come forward with solutions, and especially I appeal to officers. They need to come with solutions. They need to bring solutions to us so we can discuss it, and then we can give our opinion, because we cannot just sit on our laurels.
I understand the point, and again, I suggest that this item is referred to your Meg for consideration, perhaps that deeper dive as the expression, and you can report back to committee in October. Okay. You okay with that, Purvis?
Yeah, fine, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we're asked to note the deal. We've given feedback and we'll receive 6 monthly reports. Okay, is that agreed? Thank you very much. Item 10. MEGS. Provide a forum for members to develop a deeper understanding of those matters that would not otherwise be able to be discussed in such detail at committee. Totally understand that, and that's, I think, we can make that as a strength. As members, we have 6 identified committees. I took the opportunity of meeting with the champions last week. We had a very good discussion. We've agreed as the MEG champions, chair and vice to meet bi-monthly. There would also be an open invitation to all members of TDOS to those MEG meetings. And the champions would be in attendance at the TDOS agenda briefing meetings. And there was also an agreement that champions group will look at communications and the complaints system to ensure that we have a system fit for purpose. There are a number of complaints and concerns raised by members that would warrant further investigation and report back. There was also a discussion about the local transport plan, and all the MEGs will review, have an oversight of their respective parts of the organisation. And again, it's upping the profile. It has been mentioned earlier in the meeting, but hoping to increase the profile of combined authority scrutiny with their respective authorities, because we are representing our districts and should report and do report back to the authorities, but perhaps we need to get help and advice as to how best to do that, with that feedback then coming back into committee as to how things are progressing. So I think the future of MEGS is very good, and sort of ensure they have a clear overview and scrutiny focus. And again, there is work being undertaken over the next few weeks with a report back to the committee on the 30th of October. So I'm looking at Dan. Is there anything else I need to comment on this paper, or are we covered? Okay, so what's that like this time? Mr. Stanley.
Thank you very much. If we refer back to page 37, it's a little confusing on item 9 when it refers to passenger and rail safety MEGs. It looks as though it's just my MEG and not Councillor Huxtable's MEG. They're both meeting on the same day. So as you know yourself, you attended my meeting the last time and found that I wasn't even quorate. We really do need to get our facts right with communications so that everyone's made aware that the 2 MEGs are meeting on the same day. So when it refers to the next meeting of passenger and rail safety, that is 2 MEGs, not 1. The other point, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make is highlighting on the performance list. And when you look at the amount of passenger journeys made by bus and the amount made by train, it's a bit abysmal when you see the figures made by tram. And this is an area that we've never made a profit from. Councillor Akhtar has been very great and vocal about how do we raise money. We're spending money left, right and centre on the tram system, but we don't seem to have the support by people using it when you look at these figures.
Thank you, David. Any comments from officers on the point? Okay, we'll take that as comment, David.
Oh, yes, thank you.
But you have raised a couple of other issues, and forgive me to the champions, because I should have asked you, is there anything you want to raise in addition to what is written here? No?
Just alluding to the point about the Megs held in August. I'm not being funny, but at one time we never did them in August because people are on holiday, the school holidays and things like that. You know, I don't know whether Councillor Huxtable remember, did we ever have one in August or not, because school holidays, you've got children and things like that. And councils are usually not having meetings during that month as well.
Thank you, Chair. And just to add to Councillor Knox' point, of course, the meeting of the champions held on Friday was in the school holidays, which is why I was unable to attend. And we are technically still in the school holidays today. And the next meeting of this committee would appear to be on Monday, the 30th of October, which is in half term, I believe. So it does pose an issue for my colleagues.
Let me take that point with children. Are we too late to change the date?
And you're not, Chair. It's aligned with the Combined Authority Board. So I would suggest if you are to change the day, you bring it to an earlier date rather than a later, because otherwise the board pays the run out, etc. So it's the Chair's discretion to change the date, and I'd encourage you to do it earlier rather than.
I'll take on board the point. Let's move the board. Carol, you want to make comment on this?
Yes, I would like to go to, as a visitor, to some of the other negs as an observer. But I can't do that if I don't know when they're on. And I have asked previously if
I understand the point you're making, Carol. Let's deal with this matter first.
Yeah.
So Monday, whatever the date is in September, late September. Yeah, is that feasible?
So the next meeting at the moment is 30th of October.
So we're looking at 23rd.
Yeah, we can, well, let's take that forward. I don't know if it's any clash with anything else, but I'll liaise with members and,
sure.
And provisionally look to bring it forward a week to the 23rd.
Provisionally then is the 23rd, and can I make a request that we note future school holidays, because it is an issue. Some of us still have children. Some of us have got the T-shirt. Councillor Oden.
Thank you. Not expecting you to change the one member, but just a flag I have a meeting already on the 23rd, so I would likely have to send my apologies on the early.
Tim?
Personally, I believe if you publish the dates in advance, which you have done, we live with those dates. But when we come to the next municipal year,
yes,
we actually
very fair.
think that in advance, because I think it is unfair to members who have put the dates in the diary and may have made provision already that we suddenly change them there. So I'm speaking as one with school-age children. If it's been set the 30th, we keep it at the 30th. Yeah. But next municipal year, we take into account school holidays, half terms, etc.
That's very helpful, and we will take that on board for the future. Okay.
Yeah, the only thing, Mr. Chairman, I've to say really about this particular issue is we have to be very mindful of the officers. This is a new thing that's been set up. We needed to have these MECs take place prior to today's meeting. And this wasn't actually decided the last meeting in July, and to do it, August was the only time to fit the meetings in.
Okay, we'll learn from the experience and take it forward. I think it's been very constructive. Tim, you wanted to come back to another matter?
I do. Just in terms of accuracy, and I always say officers put in deliberate typos just to check we read the papers and oh wait, page 46, and with apologies to Councillor Ward. On the recommendations, the group agreed that 2,203/24 word plan I think that's a bit ambitious to have it 200 years from now.
They're expecting to look
We'll be around.
Well, I for one want to be around.
Daydream well.
Well pointed.
And as Councillor Stanley has already said on page 45 of paragraph number 9, it is passenger and road safety, not rail safety, Meg.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes, just to add to the active travel rate, that sits tomorrow. We have a full work plan for that, which includes cycling, walking, e-scooter introduction, and also some of the fully funded schemes, which are taking a little longer. Taking a little longer to come forward than we would like. The other half of the sustainability is diesel elimination and the progress of the performance of the electrical hydrogen buses that we have in, and their progress forward over between now and 2030 to ultimately eliminate the diesel buses. Similar thing, piece of work on trains as well. 5 legs booked, that should go through.
Councillor Hyde?
Just to say again, so it's minuted, can we please have the dates of other megs? That everybody knows when the megs are on.
They should be available. Yeah. I'll ensure that they're resent with an invitation for all TDOS members to be, if they're not sitting on that particular meg, can be there as an observer. So that's a positive step forward, so that we as members are aware of how issues are being developed. Tim?
And thank you for that, committee chair. But also login details so that observers can actually observe online.
Yes.
Rather than being physically present.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I would recommend members of the MEG be in person, observers be online, acknowledge. We are in the 21st century now, and some members do prefer to be online. Another issue that's arisen from the meeting on Friday is that we have 4 or 5 issues for each MEG to go into a deeper understanding of, and those will be then programmed for members to be aware of. So I'd ask champions to get their issues to Jenna as quickly as possible, for them then to be circulated to all members. But yes, programs and dates should be available, Carol, for you now, but we'll make sure. Okay. Are there any other questions, any other comments from champions that we can take?
Sorry, Chair, on Friday, because we have a Friday prayers time, sometimes I won't be able to make it, so I have to send my apologies. Unless you want to change it.
That was noted. Councillor Akhtar did raise that matter, and future meetings will meet in the morning. Okay, to pick up religious issues. Okay. Anybody else? I think it's really just noting that report, and then we're on. Are we agreed?
Right.
Item 11, work programme. Lindsay?
Thanks, Chair. So within your pack, you have your work programme, and you also have this WMCA forward work programme. And so you will have that horizon looking to see what's coming forward to WMCA board in terms of transport papers. You'll notice in October, and going back to previous comments about increasing accountability and scrutiny, so through discussions with the chair, it's been agreed that this committee will hold a Q&A with the portfolio lead member for transport, Councillor Mike Bird. And so we're looking to arrange that for October, and it's highly likely that it will take place in the morning of your next TDOS meeting. So it is a rolling programme, so if there's any items that you feel should be added, then please let me know and we can discuss the best way to look at that.
I'm right, Lindsay, in thinking that we'll have a briefing meeting a couple of weeks prior just to be on top of the sorts of questions we'd like to ask the portfolio holder.
That's correct, Chair. So a couple of weeks prior to the Q&A itself, there will be a workshop, hybrid. It can be held in a hybrid format to allow you as members to have a discussion about the potential lines of inquiries and areas that you'd like to question a portfolio lead member on.
And just something that comes to my mind in terms of, are we going to have questions following that briefing session made available to the portfolio holder, or are we going to hold back?
It's a decision for the committee. The other overview of scrutiny committee, the questions aren't shared. However, the areas that they're going to be questioned on are shared.
So can I suggest we adopt that as a way forward for ourselves as well, that the areas of this questioning will be shared, but not the actual question. Are we content with that? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I'm just wanting to suggest a topic for a future meeting, an agenda item we could add on, please. I think a lot of members around the table will be concerned around the potential ticket office closures at railway stations. Yes, consultation that took place over the summer. I think we ought to invite West Midlands Rail and Transport Focus to come along and discuss the results of that from that consultation, and give members an opportunity to look across their concerns.
Yes, it'll be on the next agenda. Absolutely. Thank you very much for raising that. Councillor Hunt.
I'm just happy to say that that is one of the agenda items for the next Wales Winter Metro Neg as well on the 9th of October.
Okay. No other report? Which leads me to the final item. I suppose it's not down here, but it should be. Are there any other business?
I haven't been informed of anything.
Members? I see none. Date of next meeting then is Monday the 30th at 1 o'clock. So thank everybody for their attendance, and again, it shows the enthusiasm of this room in terms of developing transport for West Midlands. Thank you very much.
And that would change.